All right, and I will pass it on over to our hostess with the mostest, Sunny, to kick it off today.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the grand finale of the fourth annual Fight ALS Film Festival. Um, that's it. Good night. See you later. Thank you for coming. No, so I'm Sunny, for those of you that somehow don't know me. I live in Hico, Texas. I was diagnosed in January of 2015, and this has been quite the passion project of emotion and just awareness and entertainment and education. And I can't say thank you enough for the opportunity to keep doing this each year. Um, I'm going to let our panelists introduce themselves. Um, I met Hop in person in NOLA in February, and from the blurry memories I have of it, we had a really good time. And I have been stalking Lisa for almost 10 years. So, Lisa, we'll start with you.
You're starting with me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm not really sure how this is supposed to go. Are you guys asking me questions? You want me to talk? I'll just introduce myself. I'm Lisa Genova. I wrote Still Alice, the novel that then became the movie that I think a lot of you have just watched with Julianne Moore and Alec Baldwin and Kristen Stewart and Kate Bosworth. And our my background's in neuroscience. I have a PhD in neuroscience from Harvard, but I mostly write stories. I write novels that are intensively researched, so I try to tell the truth under the imagined circumstances. And so for every book I write, like the real experts are the people who live with it and their families, not just the medical professionals and the scientists. Um, because I think story is a really powerful way for us to not just know something about a lived experience or an illness, but to feel something. Stories give us a chance to walk in someone else's shoes and imagine what it feels like to be them. And I think for neurological diseases, disorders, mental illness, I think people tend to shy away from those conditions because they feel too overwhelming and too scary and like, oh, I'm not really sure what's going on with you. So I just kind of get uncomfortable and shy away if I'm not familiar with it. But if I maybe read a story about it or watch a movie about it and it's well done and it's told from a place of respect and authenticity, then I might actually know something about it and feel something, feel empathy and compassion. So then when I see you, I recognize what's going on with you and I don't feel so uncomfortable and I won't turn my back. And you can stay involved in belonging in community. So I've found that stories make a really big difference, and so that's what I do. So I stuck around after Still Alice and kept going, and many novels after Still Alice. I wrote a book called Every Note Played, which is about a concert pianist with ALS, and so I got to know the folks at ALS TDI. And a lot of people in Massachusetts, where I'm from, so I got to know Ron Hoffman at Compassionate Care ALS. I'm sure some of you know him. And a lot of the people were living with ALS when I was writing that story, and their families. And so I'm still involved. I'm involved with ALS One, which was founded by Kevin Gosnell. Um, and and the other connection to ALS is not just the book I wrote. I wrote that book because our one of our two directors. So the two men, they're married. Wash Westmoreland and Richard Glatzer co-wrote the script for Still Alice. And a couple of months before they were given the opportunity to write that script and direct the film, Richard found out that he had ALS. And he had bulbar ALS, so it is his motor neurons that control the muscles of his head and neck began first. I actually never heard the sound of his voice. But he co-directed that movie, unable to speak. Um, one arm was, I think, completely paralyzed. He was typing with one finger on an iPad and working for 12 hours a day to make this movie. And I was so blown away by their decision as a couple to his ALS was moving quite quickly. And so they kind of had the sense that they could either make one more movie or they could travel the world or they could stay home and just be around family. And their decision was, let's make one more movie. And so I watched him, use all of the energy he had to do this. And I asked him on set if I could write about ALS next in his honor and could I learn about it first from him. And so yeah, he lived long enough to see Julianne Moore get her Oscar, and uh, and I wrote this book dedicated to him.
When are we going to see every note played on the big screen, Lisa?
That's a very good question. Hopefully soon. So the plan it's been a journey. So the plan is to film in Q1 of 26. We have our cast. I can't tell you. They're going to be announcing it any day now. So you'll follow me on social media. You'll get to know soon. They're amazing. They're both determined to win Oscars for their roles. But it's bumped around a lot. We had Michael Keaton and we had Angelina Jolie, and then we lost Michael Keaton and we got Christoph Waltz, and then we lost Angelina and Christoph stayed, and then we eventually lost him. And then we had Paul Bettany and Jennifer Connelly. But then the actors' strike ran on too long and he had to move on to the next Marvel movie. He plays Vision in the Marvel films. And then I would like to think that as it's taken many years and many sort of like disappointments along the way, the cast we have, I am so beyond excited about. It's like it's so worth it that it hasn't worked out until now. So knock on everything. Hopefully we'll have a chance to do what Still Alice did, which was, the book reaches so many people, but the movie will reach so many more, and it becomes an opportunity in a moment in time to use the movie as a vehicle for conversation about this time ALS and in a global way. So it would be a really great opportunity to use the movie and the people who are in it, who are such mega stars, to use their platforms to help people become aware of this and to raise money for resources. Yeah. So that's the plan.
Awesome, awesome, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, if you need any extras, I'm available.
Okay. Yep. Deal.
All right, Hop.
Hey, so thanks for calling me. Thanks for asking me to be a part of this. My name is John Driskell Hopkins. I am a 20-year member of the Zac Brown Band, and I'm also available for extra work in your film. And after I continue to stalk you and get your address, I'm going to come make you write me into it. But I just re-saw Still Alice. I believe I saw it on a plane when it came out, and it was more powerful than I remembered, and and I think it's one of those things that every time you see it, it's going to be more and more powerful than the last time you saw it. And that's a testament to the story that you're telling, Lisa. So thank you for that. And I'm also a co-founder of our 501c3 Hop on a Cure, and we have raised and granted over $4 million in research grants in under 3 years using our the Zach Brown Band platform and all of the resources at our disposal. And while I know that's a drop in the well of what we need, we are very proud of that. And ALS TDI has been a wonderful partner in that as well. So I am currently in New Hampshire as we prepare to play at the Bank of New Hampshire Amphitheater in Guilford on Thursday and Friday this week. So I'm close to Boston, and Boston has become a bit of a second home for us because we're being treated at the Healy Center in Mass General. So, yeah, that's in the nutshell. I was born in San Antonio, Texas, on an Air Force base. Sorry. So, yeah, love that I was invited, and I'm thrilled to be here.
Sonny,
We
I
are
have another question
go
for John. Can I ask it?
Of course.
Hop, the first time you saw Still Alice on the plane, did you have ALS?
No.
I imagine that's a big part of how it may have hit differently too.
Oh, absolutely. And, when you're watching something on the plane, someone asks you if you want peanuts. Someone comes by and there's all these distractions. And I remember, Julianne Moore is one of my favorites. And I remember, oh, I'm gonna click that one. I love her. And this time I was a captive listener and viewer of the film, and it certainly hit different. Um, Desi just says you can't ugly cry on a plane. I'm a testament to the fact that you can, but you're right, Carol. It was a long time ago, and it did hit different.
It's interesting. In the book, Alice gives a speech, and in writing that speech, it was very important for me to make that speech be sort of the essence of what all the people I came to know who have Alzheimer's want the world to know about them. So I came to know 27 people living with early stage and or early onset Alzheimer's. And Alzheimer's at the time already was, in the closet. People weren't talking about it. It was, sort of like cancer was 50 years ago. It was like, shh, like the big C. It was like, nobody talked about Alzheimer's. It had so much stigma and shame attached to it. But these people were younger. They were like in their late 40s, 50s, 60s with early onset Alzheimer's. And so nobody was including them in what gets talked about. So they really didn't have much of a face and a voice. And so I'm like, all right, this speech needs to be what they want everyone to know. This speech is like the epitome of like the face and voice of Alzheimer's. So I really worked hard to make that speech as perfect as I could. And Richard and Wash wrote the script, and they gave each version of the script to me to consult on. And so I gave them my edits, and they took some and they didn't take others. This speech, it was totally rewritten. And at first I was sort of like, oh, how could you? But then the magical thing was Richard wrote the speech, and he wrote it from a place of having ALS. And so it was yes, it was Julianne Moore's speech about having Alzheimer's, but it came from him and his lived experience of how people were seeing him and treating him differently and what it felt like to be losing the parts of his identity and what that felt like. So I can imagine that the speech probably, hit home. Was
Yeah,
really
and I don't need a highlighter to remember what I've
it's
read,
different, yeah.
but I do need to prepare before I go do anything in a certain way. And the highlighter was a kind of exclamation point on, do I have my walking stick? Um, do I have my meds? Do I have my hydration packets? Do I, all the things that I prepare for that I didn't used to have to prepare for. That was sort of an exclamation point on the speech, is that she's doing this highlighter, and I would have to hold on to the podium, you know. So lots of details in there that read for uh,
Yeah.
instability and
Yeah.
muscle weakness.
Definitely something having so I've read both books and I reread them both for this week. And so going back from 5 years ago when I read them, and I was just kind of halfway into my journey to now 10 years and um doing it on a different stage. Um One thing I definitely skipped over in the beginning, or the first time I read them, was your call to action on how to get involved and who you met and how this all came together. But also, you're very, very candid. Like, I had a grandmother with Alzheimer's and I didn't know what to do. I'm
Same.
talking about you.
Oh yeah, yeah. Okay. I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, same.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so reading that, and I was like, that is why we do the film fest. That is why we do ALS awareness. That's why we show up at concerts and, do all the things, because somewhere down the road, somebody's gonna meet somebody else with ALS. And I want their test run to be with me, or to be with someone who's on this call today, so that the next time they do it, they're not uncomfortable and they're not, you know, fumbling through it. We're all gonna fumble through it. We realize that. But um, one thing that, so Emily and Michelle and I just full on fangirling over both of you all week, um, was just how much ALS and Alzheimer's correlates. And each of us would pick up on the little things like, did you know this? Did you realize that? Did you know this number or that correlation? And what, I mean, I fully realized that you had a person on both diseases that you were essentially modeling the book for or after, or whatever that verb is. Um, but what was that experience writing about two diseases that are same but different?
Um, well, I didn't model them after any one person. So like my grandmother had Alzheimer's, but she was in her 80s and she was the inspiration, like being around her. And I regularly say, I wish I knew then what I understand now. So to your point of why you're doing this, which is so wonderful, it's really generous. It's like yes, no matter what you know, you're still gonna, not know a lot. You're gonna bump into not knowing what you didn't know. Um, but you don't have to reinvent the wheel if you can learn from things like this, right? Like so, and the felt experience is part of why this is so important because most of what's written out there is going to be written by a caregiver, a scientist, a clinician, a social worker, and they're all incredibly helpful points of view. But understanding the point of view and the perspective of people who live with it is often lost in neurodegenerative diseases because it compromises your ability to communicate. Um, so, so yeah, with ALS, Alzheimer's, and I would also say Huntington's for Inside the O'Briens. There were some similarities in the journey. It's just a few things off the top of my head, um, sort of lessons learned that seem to be similar or parallel, same through lines. People don't live the tragedy of their diagnosis 24/7. People often ask me, like, oh, isn't it just so sad to write these stories? Isn't it sad to know people? Like, isn't it just depressing to know people with Alzheimer's or ALS or Huntington's? My answer is, and you can tell this from my stories, like, I'm not right. Like I'm not gonna Pollyanna or rose-colored glasses this. Like the tragedy is there, the hardship and the crisis of this is there. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I'm gonna tell you the truth about it. But also people don't live the tragedy of it every day. There's the resilience of the human spirit and we adapt. Okay, I need a cane now. Okay, I need a highlighter now. Like these are all crises of identity. Like we tend to attach our identity to we're in a band, we're a college professor, we're a concert pianist. And those are important, and yet they're not essential to our humanity. Like if we can no longer do that or be that, the questions for all of us become like, well, who am I now and do I still matter? And how do I matter? And so those were common through lines that it's there's this crisis of identity, right? For Alice, like, oh my God, like if I can't teach anymore, if I don't know my daughter's birthday and my address, then I don't want to be here anymore, is what she thinks. She thinks her life won't have any value. And of course, she forgets how to go through with her quiz and she still can recognize the love in the room, right? She can still recognize the love in the relationship with her daughter, even if she doesn't know who her daughter is. Um, in every note played, he's a concert pianist, and then I give him ALS, and he can't play piano anymore, and that identity is taken away, and then it gives him the space and time to confront his past and the failed relationship of his marriage and his responsibility and his ownership of what went wrong and to maybe offer some apology and for forgiveness there. So I think that people going through neurodegenerative diseases, there's time. You don't go from diagnosis to end stage overnight. So there's this idea, this preconception that people think like, oh my God, I'm going to be, you're dying of Alzheimer's or you're dying of ALS. And it's like, no, you're living with it. So what is the lived experience? And people try to make that as full and as rich as possible, and get really focused on what matters. I learned that probably more than anyone from Kevin Gosnell. Just what a beautiful man, and his family, but just really dialed into like, okay, like, we're all gonna die. And we forget this. Like we like push our mortality to the side, and we often get caught up in spending our time in ways that we're kind of unconscious to what we're doing, and we waste a lot. And I think that a lot of the people I met with ALS got really clear on how they want to spend their time and what's important and who matters. I found that with the Huntington's folks too, and often with Alzheimer's. There was a guy I came to know who had Alzheimer's. He was 48 when he was diagnosed with early onset. I think he had a similar gene that I gave to Alice and still Alice. And I'll never forget, he said, because it was awful. He lost his job and it was very scary. He's so young. And he said, there are gifts that can come with this if you choose to open them. And so, like, that perspective can be there. Like, two things can be true, is I think a through line that's common. Like, it can be horrible, and there can be moments of real beauty and love and and just like wonderful life that can still be lived and making a difference, right? Like Hop, like you raised over $4 million. You said it might not move the needle much. That's massive. Like that, all of the pieces of the puzzle need to be there for this to get solved. So you contributed necessary pieces of the puzzle. That's amazing. So many things can be true in the journeys of these neurodegenerative diseases. And so, yeah, there's the hope. All of my stories contain the hope and the humanity.
So in the chat, Desi wrote the line, "I wish I had cancer" from the movie, and said that the her ALS story girls really felt that. And they were like, "Let it be a brain tumor, let it be anything." And I'm seeing Tina echoing those thoughts. And um, I will say, from what the limited time I've known Hop, I feel like Hop is very good at making jokes in a situation. And do you relate to that? Like when you saw that in the movie, Hop, like how has humor and levity helped you in your
It's
journey?
all because this shit is so funny. And I'm finding that my crass sense of humor is very helpful in some scenarios. Um, and I was entertained by a lot of the interactions with um, Alice and her husband, and but that did strike me as well. I wish I had cancer because at least there's a chance with cancer. People beat cancer all the time. Um, there's a lot more people that have it, but they beat it all the time. And it gives you that it is a bit of an entertaining moment, but you just wish you could trade for something that's not 100% fatal. Um, so, to answer the question, I do find humor in lots of moments in my own life. One of the stories I like to tell is I'll be texting my bandmate, and he'll be giving me grief or something, and we mess with each other all the time. And he'll be down the hall in the venue rehearsal room or something, and I'll say something like, "You son of a bitch, I'm gonna kick your ass. I'll be there in 30 minutes." You know, because he knows how slowly I walk, and I get real reactions from my people when I make jokes about myself, and it helps me to not laugh about the condition, but to remember that I'm alive, and to remember that these are the kinds of things that will be remembered when I can't speak. The first thing Zach said to me was, are you making all this up because you're a shitty banjo player? And that's exactly what I needed, you know. I'm like, you got me, man. You know, I'm just, I keep getting slower. I don't know what the problem is. And, and those moments do help me. So I hope they help other people, and I'm very in tune with when I've said something too far, and I'm really good at retracting and pivoting, and and that's all part of it, is being present for the moment and making the right moment exist, because we have so few that we can really um, call our own and embrace.
Pop, I'm gonna keep the spotlight on you for a second.
Why?
Because you're so cute. You're so fun to look at. You've had a lot of press on you lately. The people piece, the
A lot of pressure. Yeah, I have.
Girlfriend.
yeah, and a new girlfriend we heard about. I wish Jen was
She
right here
is.
in the call.
Where'd she go?
Oh. But I just want you to talk about like what made you decide to not just take care of yourself with this diagnosis and start Hop on the Cure instead, and kind of what do you see that lasting legacy of Hop on the Cure being?
Well, thanks for asking 9 different questions at
You're
once.
welcome.
They were good ones.
Yeah.
You're welcome. That's what I do. You
Well,
learn.
it all started when, so, um, we thought about being quiet and making this our own battle. There are so many wonderful organizations that that we agree with. ALS TDI comes to mind right away. With we could have just, you know, said send all your money here, but then we thought, what if there's something that ALS TDI, and I'm just saying hypothetically, doesn't get behind, and we want to go for, like, we want to put rats in a blender, and then, you know, like, was something off the wall. Um, we needed our own control. My wife was concerned that starting our own foundation would bring perhaps unwanted attention to our children. And while that was a concern of mine as well, I told her they need to know that we did everything we could. And the only way to do that is to jump in with both feet. And we found so many amazing programs in our journey so far. And most of the ALS community is, the research community is very communicative with each other, and they're very giving with their findings and information. But at some point in our um, journey with the Hop on a Cure, I said, you know, the cure might be in communication. It might be in understanding what they're doing over here and connecting it to what they're doing over there. And and I feel like we serve a second purpose, not just to fund projects that speak to us, but to also connect the community on a deeper level. And I've been blessed with a very slow progression. I still have digital movement. I'm just as shitty a banjo player as I ever was, and a little shittier. And I'm able to go and play and sing and shout from the rooftops with enthusiasm our mission. And so the longer I'm granted that opportunity, not only does it give me hope that we'll find something in my lifetime, but it gives me the opportunity to really throw my weight around and to put my personality behind it. So the humor coming out and those nuances are all part of what I do on stage every day. You know, sometimes I'm playing a songwriter in the round, and people will be laughing at whatever I'm saying, and I, explain I'm really not gonna play any music. I'm just gonna talk shit up here for an hour, and it goes hand in hand. This entertainment on a larger scale. So I'm hoping that my ability to bring that detail to the our our movement is going to be one that I can continue for a long time.
Us too.
Hot, like so many other people living with ALS who are on here right now. I mean, I think, and I mean this very genuinely, you do have an incredible wife and three incredible girls, and all of us at TDI, and I'm sure throughout the community, are aware that, not only is time limited because of ALS, but because they really annoyingly are only 24 hours in a day. And so to do what you're doing for the ALS community is taking time away from Jen and the girls. And that is going to be something that when we hang up, I'm going to cry about for the umpteenth time, because I want you to have all of that. So I am as grateful to them as I am to you for making that decision to do this. Thank you.
And time away from my girlfriend.
Yeah, well, you get more time with her now.
Those of you who just came to the program, I just met a family in Toledo, Ohio, and they were connected to ALS TDI. And I said, "Oh, yeah, Carol Hamilton's my girlfriend." And they're like, "Really?" And I'm like, "No, dumbass, I'm married. Did you read anything about me?"
Yeah, yeah. They didn't stalk you like you did Lisa, clearly.
Right. Do the work, people.
But you know what, too? I think the humor that we all see, that's not new. That was John Driskell Hopkins pre-ALS. That's a through line. And I think, you got to be the same person, too, while
Yeah,
living, like Lisa said, with this
one of
disability.
the scariest things is that without my voice, I don't know who I am. And a lot of people are able to continue with writing and their presence in a digital world, and I haven't needed to face that yet, but that's terrifying to me because my inflection, my singing voice, my delivery is everything about who I am and what makes me me. So it's terrifying, and I know that all of you feel the same way, and we're just working as diligently as we can to fix it.
And for those who didn't get a chance to read the book, Every Note Played, that was the book we had with this movie the week. It's about a concert pianist who loses his ability to play. Lisa, how did you choose that instrument? How did you choose that to be the thing? Was there a certain inspiration? Was there a musician you were looking towards at the time, or were you watching your friend who is the filmmaker? How did you get to that? And then, obviously, having a professional musician on the call with us, Hop, after that, I'd love to hear your reflection on how it's changed your playing style and your singing and all of that.
Yeah, Lisa, why not the banjo?
Yeah, if I could time travel, I could rewrite it and have the main character be you, and then you could be in the movie as the banjo guy. Um, so so with all of my books, it's sort of in some ways like writing historical fiction. So if you're writing, a historical novel that takes place during World War II, you research that time period, you get all the facts and all the information that you can, you learn everything, and then you leap off into fiction from there and you choose your characters and what they're in the middle of and what they're up to. I learn everything I can about the neurological condition, the neurological disease. I learn from the people who live with it, the medical professionals, the textbooks, the science, and then I go into fiction from there. And so when I choose my characters, um, one of the things that is important to do in fiction is A, you're always telling the truth under the imagined circumstances, and B, you want to raise the stakes as high as possible whenever possible. So for Alice and Still Alice, she's going to lose her ability to remember and think. Like her cognition is going to be impaired. And I thought, well, what if I make her, an elite thinker? Like, what if she's a professor at Harvard and she's a professor in linguistics and she's going to lose her ability, language is going to go. So again, I want to create the crisis of identity in as high stakes as possible in like a public way, right? So with ALS, I had decided to have my character as ALS begin in his hands. As a high percentage of folks with ALS, that's where it begins. And I thought, well, what could my character be doing with his hands that would be both like sort of like public facing and like what it like I also like the idea of like what if he lived a very like you do, Hop, like live a very worldly global life in front of people, right, on display. So it's like, well, if he's a concert pianist, right, and he's a famous one, and so he's used to traveling, and he's like, a internationally known pianist, and then his world is going to shrink to the confines of his home at some point. And so no, like everyone was paying attention to him. What happens when nobody pays attention to him? um how would he be able to handle that? How would he change his life to still matter? What would become important and meaningful to him if he could no longer play? How long would he try to continue to play? And as we all do, we try to hold on to who we are for as long as we can until we have to reinvent who we are. When he learned, God, it's been a long time since I talked about this book. The left-handed concerto that he learned when he lost the ability to use his right hand, and then when that went. So it was just the decision was just how do I raise the stakes as high as possible? How do I create interesting metaphors? If he was just an accountant and he's, typing all day, he's got to use your hands to do his job at his computer like a lot of us do. But, that's doesn't make for high stakes literature. So I interviewed a lot of pianists. None of them had ALS, but I interviewed, um, gosh, I interviewed a lot of pianists and I went to a lot of piano concerts, and some very well-known pianists and others not. And I took piano lessons. I always try to like get into my characters as much as I can. Like with the book I just wrote it's about bipolar disorder, and my main character is a stand-up comedian. So I took a class out of New York City and stand-up comedy writing, and I did a 5-minute set. But so for every note played, I learned some piano. I'm not very good, but I learned. And so I got some of the sense of what it's like to play, and yeah.
So Hop, how has talking about playing, like how has it changed when you're on stage? What is singing like? Like how's your experience different now?
Well, like Lisa said, my ALS started in my hands, and well, I noticed because I'm using them every day, and they have to make certain shapes. Um, by the way, I only play banjo on one song. I'm a acoustic guitar player, and when I when I was doing this double time fast, like Mumford and Sons sort of Celtic bluegrass picking style with my right, this double time strum, I was noticing back in 2019 that I was having a tough time getting around to this double time. I've been doing it for 30 years. I don't know um, my hands weren't responding, and it wasn't for 2.5 years that I got my ALS diagnosis. Um, so the diagnosis kind of gave me permission to just play single time, to not try to do double time anymore, because I knew it was sloppy, and I was just willing it forward. But now that I know I have motor neuron retraction, I'm like, well, I'm not going to ruin the song just out of my sheer stubbornness. So I would start playing in regular time, not the double time sort of style. And luckily, there are at any given moment 2 or 4 other guitar players in our 9-person band that are playing some sort of guitar, so it it's fine. And no one has complained about my changing my parts. I can still sing 97% of the things that I have always sung. If something comes wrong, like we covered "The Devil Went Down to Georgia," and there is a part that says, "Fire on the mountain, run, boys, run. Devil's in the house with the rising sun." You know, chicken in the bread pan picking out dough. You always wanted to know what those lyrics are, right? But it's rapid fire. Chicken and bread pan picking out dough. I can't do that anymore. And it sounds like if you were to solo my part, it'd be like, you know, it's it's ridiculous how bad it is. But my pitch is still on. So there are 3 of us, 3 other people doing that in different pitches. And if I get phonetically close enough, on that one song, it's fine. And then everything else is basically fine. But when we're learning a new song or we're writing a new song, um, something that I would come up with that is very syncopated and lots of um, rhythmic choices and a lot of words. I can't do that anymore. And I would say I've got this idea. Clay and Jimmy need to do that part, and I'm going to do this legato thing over it. And why I hate that, I I don't hate it enough to not be on stage, and I'm going to perform as long as I can. Um, I'm going to perform in the Zach Brown band as long as I'm providing what the Zach Brown band needs with excellence. But when I feel like I'm not contributing, I'm not going to be a billboard sitting on a chair and on a riser, um, and just standing around waiting for that one note I can sing. I'm going to play, and I've started to write songs that are more manageable at slower tempos, but still energetic with my own band surrounding me. And it's a challenge. It is, because I don't want to write long legato ballads for the rest of my life. They're very it's a very one trick pony sort of way to sort of create. The day I was diagnosed, I started writing a song that we just put out 2 weeks ago. And it's called I Love You Forever. And it was the only thing that I could think of that my kids really always needed to know if I lost my voice. And I'll put it in the chat. But it's the kind of thing that I enlisted my piano player in the Zach Brown band to help me with it. And he wrote this gorgeous piano part, and he wrote a wonderful bridge for it. And what it became was this moment in time. The irony and the tragedy is when I sang my album that I released in 2021 called Lonesome High, I would have literally stood there and told you I've never sung anything better in my life. I'm at the top of my vocal game. I'm 48 years old, 49 years old, whatever it was when I was recording that. And I'm like, there's nothing I can't do. And right after that, I was diagnosed, and all the things that I can do started to lessen. So I recorded this in about 3 years ago, and when you hear it, it's kind of a letter to my children about I have three girls. I have 16 and two 13s, and it's about things that we haven't even been through yet that I'm trying to get ahead of because I don't know how much time I have. So um, enjoy that. Um, or crying your beer later. But that's sort of become the way that I'm approaching this is sing it now. Like there are some songs that if I have no good writing idea, I'll sing a Beatles song and put it on a metronome and um, and I can know that I can come back and produce it later. If I want to have a string quartet on it, I'll write that out if I can't sing anymore. So I'm trying to get ahead of it, but there's no way to get ahead of it. There's no end mark that makes anyone believe I've created enough. I'm done now. You know, we just I think someone once said, and I've always heard it was Sting, you never finish a song, you abandon it. And that's the way music is for me. I'm never going to finish music, but one day I will have to abandon it. And I just don't look forward to that day. Did that answer all 9 of your questions, Emily?
Yes, it did.
I'm
Um,
gonna have to send you the link to our Film Fest session with Jason Becker, um, who faced some of this.
Yeah. I've I've been emailing with Jason and we're talking about him writing something for me in this heavy metal thing that I'm working on. It's all
Cool.
acronyms. Like my favorite acronym from the record so far is it's all the ALS acronyms in the title, and the one I like the best is a living statue. So we're writing this aggressive, angry music about here again things that I haven't experienced yet, but things that my community is experiencing, and and I'm trying to be a voice for that uh, without overstepping. So I
If I
seriously hope that Jason and I can collaborate on something like that. He's amazing. Uh,
That's so cool.
I
Have you
was
been?
able to get my friend that I did the film on up to Harvard doctor that taught him how to play music with his mind, and he knocked it out of the ballpark. And it's a EEG cap that communicates with an invention that he devised. And boy, Hop, I hope you look at that. I know I talked with your executive director at one point, and I'll I'm pretty sure we sent you a clip for some program you guys were doing, but it's on its way. There is a way to play music with your mind, and you visualize raising notes by looking at the clouds, and you visualize squeezing a ball to get the notes to lower. And they really upped the invention for our visit, and that was about a year and a half ago. But there is hope. There,
I'm very excited about all that on the horizon with Neuralink and all the things that could be. I mean, but I'm also trying to I'm clinging to the hope that we will fix it and be able to use our own hands and our own voices and our own um, fingers to create.
Well, the ALS, everything ALS that I'm on is run by McFinn Levere. And he's reversed his ALS symptoms now for many, many years. So there's there's 62 reversals. So I know that you have that on your website.
Yeah.
We just have to keep hoping and working. If anybody wants to reach out, I put my email there for any cross collaborations.
Thank you.
Have you all seen the film? It came out a while ago. It's called Ember's Left Hand. Um, it's really worth watching. Oh gosh, shaking heads. He was a painter. So different kind of artist, but it's a really lovely documentary film and how he, adapted to, when his right arm went, he started painting with his left. And while he was so upset to have to do that, of course, um, he painted in as I'm remembering it, I might be misremembering some, but he painted in a different style. Like it was accessing a different part of his creativity and a different part of his brain. And a new burst of creative output happened for him that you know, he was so focused on the heartache of what he lost, of course, and then it was like, oh my gosh, who knew that this other kind of art could come out of him? Um, so I don't know, maybe there's something that's in your near future, Hop, creatively that you wouldn't have guessed that this horrible illness is forcing you into doing that you couldn't have ever foreseen. I don't know. But I
Modeling.
love that you're sticking with it because it's what you love and it's your talent and it's your passion and to keep going in a public way is it's just great for you. Like you'll continue to have meaning and joy in your life, but you'll be inspirational to people, both the community of ALS for them for sure, and for people who don't know it. It's we need good humans who are able to be creative and public with what they're doing, and we need inspirations more than ever. This world is tough right now. I love how you're approaching this. It's wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go into modeling.
That is your next career. Yes. Yes.
No, it's
But check out Ember's Left Hand. You might like
gonna
it.
be easy for me to just have someone pose and
Yeah.
be all set. I'm
Posing
such
is good.
an incredible specimen. Um,
Great.
yeah, I mean, we're all clinging to to everything that we know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well,
I'm gonna put Karen on blast real fast, and Karen, if you wanna talk, feel free to unmute yourself. But Hop, you hit on it, talking about what your legacy for your girls, and Lisa, one thing that comes up in the book and then in the movie is the genetic form. And when we were kind of chit-chatting in our Hurry ALS story group earlier, Karen was talking about how she found out, she remembers when her dad was diagnosed, and then when she started having symptoms, her dad's reaction to um, passing it on to her, and just the raw emotion and just the she was saying it felt like she was there, like, or that the movie was set in her, living room, all being around each other. And um that's something that I know I don't necessarily understand a lot of, the familial side, but I know there's quite a few people on the call tonight that have those kind of connections. Um, so I think where I'm going is thank you for highlighting and bringing awareness to that, because um, that's not a part of ALS that's often described or felt unless you're in that bubble.
Right. Yeah. It's not common for it's not that common for Alzheimer's or for ALS. It's a small percentage of the total folks who have it who have this genetic form. So I gave Alice a genetic form of Alzheimer's, which means that it runs in the family. It's called autosomal dominant. So if mom or dad has, say, mom has Alzheimer's and it's the familial genetic kind, each kid she has will have a 50-50 chance of inheriting the genetic mutation which will cause the illness. And so this it's and I wrote a book on Huntington's, and that one is always genetic. So unlike ALS and Alzheimer's, where it's on the rarer side, um, it's mostly sporadic. For Huntington's, it's 100% genetic. So it really runs in families. And so you have this an additional layer of experience where there's guilt. The parents feel horrible, like, I didn't know I was going to pass this on to you. I'm so, like they did it on purpose, but like so they feel horrible about it. You can find out. So with genetic testing, and so there's this, like, the generation of the kids can go get a blood test and find out. And it's like, well, do you want to know? Like, that's a complicated question. And there's in the research I've done with folks is that it's very not black and white. There's all kinds of shades of gray of why you'd want to know or not want to know. If you have if there's three kids and two of them turn out gene positive and one's gene negative, you think, oh, the kid is gene negative. That's great. She's never going to get the illness. But then there's survivor's guilt. And how does that affect the relationship between the siblings and their expectations for the future? And like, do I bother going to med school, or do I bother getting married? Or so it's really the generational aspect when it's inherited is it's really complicated. And it's they with Huntington's in particular, they call it a family disease because it's every generation is going to get hit with this in some way. So it's just hard to know that it's going to potentially keep going. And then there'll be a point in life where maybe your parents have it, and you're getting maybe symptomatic, or you're aging into where you might become symptomatic, and you have children, and so you're sandwiched in between. And it can be very, very scary for that generation who's sandwiched in between. It's hard. The genetic part is hard, and genetic counselors are out there to help you talk about this and help you understand the nuances of testing and finding out. And um, and in some sense, there's a lot of hope in that community because the folks who have the genetic version, at least the scientists, know something pretty specific about what's causing your illness. And so a lot of the research that's being done is being done on SOD1 or presenilin 1, or in Huntington's case, the Huntington gene. Like, there's a lot of, like, genuine optimism over being able to find a solution and a treatment and a cure for folks who have the genetic version. So they're saddled with a lot for sure. And I think there's definitely some significant hope for effective treatments in those populations.
I do love that you wrote in a positive and a negative and an I don't want to know,
Yeah.
because it covered all these scenarios, and that the positive was giving birth. I mean, it just keeps going. You were talking about raising the stakes, and my theater degree was just like, yep, that's it,
Yeah. And
But
it happens. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it totally happens. It's not like it's a stake that is impossible. And I thought that was well done. Yay.
Yay, thank you. Yeah, I try to represent as many people's experiences as I can. I don't want to leave anybody out, and I want folks to really get as rich and a full and a nuanced understanding of the complexities and the challenges of this as possible. So I try to give, all of the as many scenarios as I can. Yeah. Thanks.
I will say, I've been in this journey for 21 years now. After my friend Claire got diagnosed back in 2004. And I have one family that I've been working with for a really long time. And out of the 8 siblings, 3 of them have had ALS. And there's probably like 21 grandchildren in that family. And one of my pal's husband said, I'm not going to have my kids tested because otherwise they won't be able to get life insurance. And, you deal with these realities of this disease, and, he, whether or not his kids have it or they don't have it, they're all in their young, late 20s, early 30s. They're starting to have children now. He's like, we don't need to know. We just don't need to know. But like, it's different for everybody. And they're a C9 family. They're a C9 family. All went to Columbia, under the team at Columbia, which I'm very connected to in New York. And yeah, it's the familiar part is can be scary, you know. So
Well, I feel like we could probably be here for 3 more hours, but I would be nervous what that would do to the folks on the East Coast. It would be very late. I will hand it over to Sunny to wrap up our fourth annual Fight ALS Film Fest. And
Um, yes. Thank you. Thank you to each of you for being here, for being a part of this discussion, for staying in the fight. So many of you stayed in the fight after you lost your someone. And while I can't say I would do the same, I'm grateful to still be here because of your efforts in this fight. And Lisa, you touched on the and. I can be sad and I can have ALS and Desi's chimed in a couple of times. She had this idea and our group went out, some of us went out and got it, but it's a ampersand tattoo and we'll have it in different places, and that's always the reminder of we can have ALS and be grateful for the life we lead. So I do want to give each of you a chance um to wrap, but from the bottom of my heart, thank you both for being here.
Thank you
Well,
for
here on
having
the
me.
East Coast, we're gonna wrap with a whiskey, and I'm not working until Thursday, so thank you all.
Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, when Every Note Played hits the theaters, we should do something. We'll do something for ALS TDI. We'll do something for we'll get something fun and helpful and yeah.
like
That's
I always say, it's
amazing.
not the community you choose to be in, but it's a bunch of great people. Awesome, awesome,
Yeah,
awesome people. And I
really.
love my TDI family. They're amazing. Carol and everybody at TDI are, excuse my French, but they're fucking amazing.
So grateful too. Oh, Lisa, well, we can't wait for the news to break.
I
Sounds
know,
like
you and me
imminently on
both.
casting.
You and me both. I can't wait to share it with you guys. It's bananas. And thank you for watching Still Alice and reading Every Note Played. Thank you for spending so much time with these characters I made up to hopefully do do a lot of good in the world. So
You make
thank
it
you.
easy.
Thank you for,
Writing.
yeah,
It's so easy.
thank you for self-publishing.
Thank you.
That's insane.
Right? I sold Still Alice out of the trunk of my car for almost a year.
Wow.
no one would publish it. Yeah.
That's when I first met you, Lisa.
Oh yeah.
When we were up at Ron was courting me back in the day to work at CCALS, and your book was you were signing books at the CCALS gala like 6 or 7 years ago.
Oh my gosh. Well, it wasn't self-published then, but yeah. Okay. I don't know. It's been a while. I've been at this for like 20 years now. So anyway, thank you, everybody.
You're good at
Thank
it.
you.
Hobbs,
Thanks,
thank you so much.
everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sunny.
Good night.
Yes.
Bye.
Good night,
Night, everybody.
everybody.